nayo motisha ya maisha. Eyes of a child run free and wild. Who's the
So my journey in filmmaking, I think I was those children who was born a filmmaker. I was always, I remember reading narrative books, and the images would pop vividly in my mind. If any of you have children, or if you are a child at one point, you knew what you are. It might not be defined, but there are certain personality traits that I had. I was very visual driven. So I am the last in a family of 5. If we all watched a horror movie, guess who didn't sleep at night? Jinna didn't sleep at night because my mind remembers images very strongly. So at night, the boogie monster did not come out of the TV, but he was somewhere around my bunk bed. And that was just very frustrating. When we used to play Kalongo as children, play house, I was very intentional in directing my friends. For example, we would watch a movie for Kukamanga, those who watched KBC those days in the 90s, early 90s, and we would reenact it. But then I would tell my friends what to carry, how we would make it even more interesting. And it was such a great place for me. So apart from reading books, apart from doing narrative, I think I started my first business at the age of 11 years old. I was in Kimathi Primary School, Eastlands. Anyone from Eastlands? Yay! Great minds are in Eastlands. Okay, well, then they move out of Eastlands, but yeah, but I'm making my way back to make a difference. But I was in Eastlands. I was raised in Eastlands half my life. I was in Kimathi in between Jericho and Baha, and hence my life was full of adventure. Because then the guys for Baha said we were Mababi, and then guys for Salem, we were cool, you know. And then when guys for Kimathi went to Karen, then we were like, we were from Eastlands. So I had a very conflicted childhood, let's just say the least. But where was I? So I started my first business at the age of 5, and this is how it happened. I was in Kimathi Primary, which was not a group of schools. It is a city council school. Yay! And it was fun. So our teacher taught us everything in class 5. She was the math, the English, you know, she just used to go to the cupboard and then come out with a different book. But in our minds, especially in my mind, I would think of her, scientists now, okay. Then, you know, I'd picture her with a lab coat, imaginary, then I would listen to her teaching science, you know. But to cut a long story short, she fell ill for a long time. And so that meant what? You go to school and she's left assignments. A whole term, I kid you not. Now, for me, you must engage me. Otherwise, you lose me. I think my attention span is for like, it's good. But, so, because she wasn't there for that long time, so we'd finish work, like I finished my tasks quickly and I need to do the next thing. And so, because she wasn't there, then there was a lot of just idle time. And what I decided to do was, we were reading Archie comics. So they had Archie's Club. So I started Archie's Club. I mobilized the artists in the school to draw stickers. We created a way to make them work. People bought them for 5 bob. We sold them, and then anyone who wanted to be part of our club, you had every day to bring a shilling. So yeah, I made good money. I think I made close to 1,000 at the end of the term. And then what you were going to do was make a retreat, like get everyone and have a party. So you can see then I think I was saying something about entertainment, but of course my folks, having been brought up in a very African community, no one understood. In fact, we were busted, and that's how the business sank. I always tell my mom, if you knew how hard it is to make money as a filmmaker, you should have allowed me to start at 11. You know, by the time I was 20, I'd have been much better off financially. I'm joking, but it's a truth, actually. Yes, so how did Leo come about? And I think it's very surreal for me to stand here and share about Leo. And the powerful thing about Leo for me is that there is power in African thought. Because Leo for me was a God-given thought that was given to an African child. And having done test screenings at places like Oprah Leadership School, having done it at the London place during the Olympics, having to just coming back from Cannes in France because of a film and having you sitting here to listen to me talk about something that was a thought in my mind is absolutely surreal. Uncomfortable, but surreal. And my encouragement to anyone here is you must begin valuing your thoughts. Because everything that we have in life starts from a thought. So I had walked, so from starting my company, failing at in class 5, at the age of 12, I gave my life to Christ. My mentor was an artist. He was a child pastor, Pastor Masharia. He was an artist, and he painted murals and stuff like that. He was really good. And he began mentoring me about God and faith, and he painted. That was the amazing thing. And so from that age, he mentored 4 of us, and we were all last ones. Now, if you're a last one, people say, oh, you're spoiled. I'm like, hell no, not when you grow, sorry, oh, heck no. Beverly? No, when you are growing up in a team of 4 stronger siblings. They bully you around, and you have to really stand up and say, I'm not a kid. And so what we were suffering from, all the 4 of us, is that no one listened to us. But this mentor listened to us. And he thought what we were saying was interesting. And it's amazing how at the age of 12, we would say, oh, we want to do a play. And he would say, okay, go ahead. I can write it? He says, yes, you can. I'm like, oh, cool, And then, we would be like, oh, we want to do this camp. He says, tell me what you think. And that, for me, is amazing. As soon as you engage that solution process in my mind, it just beams. As in, I think I over-troubleshoot if there's something like that. So at the age of 12, and then I was so deep in God, and just seeking my purpose and loving church and loving worshiping and loving talking to people about God. I thought I was going to be a missionary at some point. I think at the age of 14, I began seeking deep on my purpose. Why am I here? I think God is very intentional on why you're the way you are. I actually think you're either, just the way creatures are different. A frog is different from a lion. We are all like that in our own way. Our giftings make us unique. And so I tried to write a book, and the book didn't work. And then I started writing dialogue, like how you would write a script. And when I did that, the amazing thing that happened is I came alive. It was like a fish had found herself in water. And I knew instantly that I was a movie maker. And I don't know where that came from, but even if you ask my high school mates, and I won't tell you the school I went to in high school, but if you ask them, I used to tell them I'm going to be a filmmaker. I didn't understand the concept of it, everything about it, and I don't have anyone in my family who's in media and stuff. In my immediate family. But I knew that I was called to film. It was very clear that this is what I was called for. And so, at the age of 17, it was very clear to me that I needed to make it to Hollywood. Yes, yes. So at 17, being very determined, a leader, girl guide, I've been driven all my life. I was like, okay, you see that goal? And then, I come from a background of great parents. They're very task-oriented. If you're going to say you're going to do something, you better do it. Because you wake up in the morning and they ask you, so how's the movie? Today, I don't want to talk about it. But they make you, they encourage you to think solution. And so, at the age of 17, I said, I'm going to get myself to Hollywood, and I'm going to tell great stories that are inspirational, that are educational, and they are entertainment rich. Then I was writing, because of feeding Sweet Valley High, Hollywood movies, I was a very blonde chicken, an afro. My mind was, I think some of my characters then had blue eyes, chiseled chins. Thanks, you can laugh, it helps us talk, right? He's next. So anyway, to cut a long story short, so I tried to tell my parents about film. They didn't understand what film was. And I remember they said, just go to Daystar. Communications is close to what you're saying. And I'm like, no, it's not the same thing. And they, because of course I was 19 and everyone thought I was Joseph the dreamer, just talking about things that were very not tangible. And I know their intentions for me were great. They wanted me to succeed. So they sent me to Daystar. After 1.5 years, I was sure, I mean, Daystar is a great university, but then it didn't have film. So, just in case anyone is from Daystar, the school changed my life. So, to cut a long story short, so I went to South Africa. I had found a film school, and then the challenge now was convincing my parents, especially my dad, what filmmaking is. He's a retired financial officer. I don't know. Man, I don't know how you can draw the picture. In fact, one time I thought I'm gonna do like a hula balloon, a dance for him, and but this is what I came to understand. You see, then as a teenager, you're very emotional. Oh, my parents don't love me and stuff like that. But then, I think after I prayed, it came to my mind that my dad was just worried about how I was going to make my ends meet. So what I did, I went and researched Steven Spielberg, how much he makes, all the guys I wanted to be like. Then I wrote him a letter. And I shared with him my vision, and I told him how much these other filmmakers make. Of course, it was in the millions of dollars. And that one day, this is where I'm going to be at. So he had said no. So of course, my mom, being the one who's stuck between a child and father, took me for my yellow fever inoculation, and she was like, okay, let's keep praying God to work on Dad. And that evening, after I gave him the letter, the next day in the morning, he called me to the living room, and he said, is this what you really want to do? I said, yes. Then he said, then I bless you. Go for it. Of course, he still didn't understand what film was, and every time a reporter came on TV, he kept asking me, is that what you're going to do? And you won't see me in front of a stage. I am always behind. I enjoy it there. So I went to South Africa, and I loved being in South Africa because one of the things that South Africa did for me was help me celebrate being African. I mean, they made us read books from African writers, and it helped me as a writer to begin to understand how to interpret an African story to a global audience. This is where, they help, the South Africans, in nature, they celebrate who they are, their hairs. They got sometimes tougher, kinkier hair than this. And by the way, you cannot tell that chick she's not hot. So it helped me a whole lot. And that's why I rock my afro. And some people say, you're not serious. And I'm like, when did seriousness associate with hair? Intellect. Now, back to my train of thought. Is that I did the film school in South Africa, and it was very encouraging, and then there I thought, after I finish film school, I'm gonna launch my first blockbuster, bang, I'm done, it's magical. I came back to Kenya, and the film industry was really slow, and I had my brother in Boston, and early 2090s, all parents' dream was for their children to be in America, and my parents were one of those parents, and so they're like, your brother is in Boston, this film is still not making sense, just go to Boston, Jinna. And I'm like, no, I'm beginning to see something about Africa, because when I came back from South Africa, I began seeing value in being African. I think being born in the 80s, I was in that culture where if your auntie brought you a dress from America, you wore the American dress for special occasions, and then the one from Deacons. And yeah, and so subliminally what it told my mind is the things from outside are more of value than me, than Kenyan-born things, And so, so coming back from SA, I was beginning to see something about Kenya, and I was beginning to see something about telling Kenyan stories to a global audience, and very passionate about telling Kenyan stories outside war, poverty, famine, and everything else that shows us as a dark continent. And this is what most of you have been exposed to, and the global media is full of. And so to cut a long story short, I went to America. I did my plays in Houston, Boston, and Houston and Boston, and it was a challenge. America was not like home. If I had done plays in South Africa, I had done my first small school film in South Africa, but America was a total different environment. And I was challenged so much to go into nursing rather than being a filmmaker. I cannot stand the sight of blood, so I'm glad I never went into nursing. But to cut a long story short, you remember my goal was to get to what? To Hollywood. This is like 8 years later. I got to Hollywood and I did my internship. Amazing opportunity. I was interning at Rifkin Ebert's company, and Arnold Rifkin used to be Bruce Willis' manager for the longest time. I never saw him. I saw his pictures in the office. That's just how big he is. And if you've ever watched Ugly Betty, it was that kind of a story. We were flies on the walls, interns. No one ever talks to you. And when I finished my internship, I remember it was towards 2007 at the end, and the American economy was dipping, and they were not hiring interns. So I could see right across. I could see Universal. I could see Walt Disney. But you can't get through. And I'm like, I have sacrificed, lived off my backpack. I can't tell you anything. I mean, if I told you all the little things I had to do in between, how I had to move away from my comfort zone to get to that point, and then to get to that point of Hollywood, and it's not hiring me, it was a very deflating point. I remember walking in the beach in Santa Monica, and I stood there and I was like, I'm going to rebrand myself and change my career into something else, because film is not making sense. And I remember the still small voice saying, you remember that feature film that you've always prayed about? This is the time. With no name, no resources, and an idea. I stood on that beach and I knew, I have an idea, and it's a dark, like the future looked very dark. You know, I don't know how I'm gonna do a movie by myself. And then I stood behind me, and if I didn't dare into the next step, it would make this whole journey become insignificant. I'd paid a price for 8 years. So I said, you know what? Since I'm not a quitter, let me go in. If I die, at least I died, tried. And this is what I decided on that beach in 2007, that I'm gonna come back to Kenya and I'm gonna tell a Kenyan story globally. And voila, Leo was born on the beach that day. And I can't tell you the journey that I have gone through. It has been a great journey. I have seen, you know how I would see my friends who are not in the film industry, who are in the medicine industry, study for their exams and then pray so hard, and God would just open doors. And I think at some point I thought, I think God answers people in science, but I don't think he answers artists. And today I stand here with this as a testimony that God does listen to the prayer of a filmmaker. Because when it came to shooting Leo, I did write the script, and then I didn't write it because I really wanted to write it by myself. It's just at that time I had no name and no one wanted to risk the story with me. So yeah, and so I wrote, and then I did 1.5 years of trying to find funding in California studios, Chicago. I can't tell you who I met, and they just thought, "Are you going to tell us about this boy in Kibera?" I was like, "Yeah, but he's not always stabbing. He flies sometimes in his mind." They're like, yeah. Okay, next story. You know, they wanted to see a very negative perspective of Africa. I'm not saying you can't tell that story. Just for me, I wanted to do a story that celebrates how great my country is. That's my passion as a filmmaker. And so it has been a great journey. I say journey because it is not instant success. And my mom told me one thing. She said, you will work hard. And I didn't understand that then, but now, I think she needs to say it again. Dreaming is not easy. You must have the work ethic and the persistence to it. So I am sure my 15 minutes are done. And yes, thanks. Okay, great. So it has been a journey. I think it's tomorrow early in the morning I go to Zanzibar where the film is being shown again, telling a story. And it has been fascinating. I have met kings. Yesterday were the ambassador's residence in US. I can't tell you many key icons I have met, not because I'm a scientist, but because I'm what? I'm a filmmaker. So if your passion is to make shoes, if your passion is to make planes, if your passion is to do whatever it is, as awkward as it might feel, if that's your God-given gift, I say go for it, because it's seriously time to tell an African, it's time to take African services and goods and make them global. And so thank you for listening. I hope you got something.